Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Roccia is out. You can go and pull for her right now, as well as her signature weapon, the Tragic Comedy. And so today, I'm giving you a guide on everything you need to know about her. If you've never seen one of my guides before, I essentially break down everything you need to know. We're going to cover what weapon she should use, what echo sets you should run, as well as what stub stats you should be aiming for on those echoes. We're going to go over her Forte circuit. I'm going to break it down to make it easy for you, as well as what you should focus on upgrading in her Forte here. I'm going to cover her resonance chain in terms of, do you need to go for more copies than just one, or is just getting her once more than enough to make the most of her? And then to top it all off, her teams. And you know what? Let's just start here with her teams, because it's going to help me explain, should you pull for her? Maybe you're still deciding if you should pull for her while watching this. She's a sub DPS. Her main goal is to do some damage, but then buff your main DPS who's going to come in. For me, that would be Cameelya. The other options, if you don't have Cameelya, you can run the Havoc MC, which is a free-to-play character, so someone that everyone will have as long as you've played far enough in the story to get her Havoc form. Not her Spectra form, but her Havoc form. Or you can run her with Ranger Donjin. She is a 4-star option, so a little more friendly than, you know, Cameelya, a 5-star, who's going to be a little bit harder to pull than Donjin. But if you have any of those three and you enjoy using them, 110% you should pull for Roccia. She will help make the most of them in their kits as their Havoc DPSs, which is what she's made to buff. Some team ideas for the cameelya team. You will run Roccia alongside cameelya and then either Verina or the shorekeeper. Either one works, whichever one you have that works for this team. If you're not using them in another team or something like that, use either one. If you are looking for a free-to-play option to replace Verina or the shorekeeper, that is going to be Baiju. But again, Verina, if you just started playing, I would aim to get her from like your beginner banner and all of that. She's definitely the most useful standard 5-star character in the game, so aim for her. But until then, you could run Baiju in there instead of Verina or the shorekeeper. And with mentioning Baiju, she falls into the most free-to-play friendly team because you can get her for free without doing any pulls, just playing through the game, as well as the Havoc MC. So you can pair them up with Roccia if maybe you just started Wuthering Waves and you're looking for someone to pair up with Roccia because you really like her design, or you just happen to pull her because you just started. Whatever it may be, and you have Roccia, this is like your free-to-play team. But as I mentioned, Donjin, she fits the same way. You're going to have Donjin alongside Roccia, and then either Verina, shorekeeper, or Baiju as the more free-to-play friendly option. And those are really her teams right now, as she's mainly just here to buff Havoc DPSs. Of course, if you want to run her with someone else, be my guest. Do whatever you have the most fun doing. This is a game. It's meant to be fun. You're meant to enjoy it. So do whatever you want to, but those are the best teams for her. So now let's get into her weapon. Her best weapon is going to be the Tragic Comedy. It's her signature weapon. The signature weapon is always the best weapon for the character when they come out. It has a very important stat of it buffs crit rate, which I will mention here, but you do need a 70% crit rate on her. I'll explain why in a moment when we get to her Forte, but crit rate is very nice on this. And then also it increases her attack by 12%. And every time basic attack or intra skills passed, heavy attack damage bonus increases by 48%. Kind of does some heavy attack damage. That's why we have that. The next best option is Verity's Handle. This is Zhang Yao's signature weapon. So if you have it and you want to throw it on her instead of Zhang Yao, or you have an extra copy, you can do that. It also has crit rate, so it fulfills that same role as the Tragic Comedy. The only difference that makes it slightly worse than the Tragic Comedy for her is that it's not made for her specifically. It still gives 12% attribute damage bonus, and then when you use your Res Lib, the wheeler gains 48% Res Lib damage bonus for 8 seconds, and this effect can be extended by 5 seconds every time you use Res skill. That's more for Zhang Yao, but you can still get the benefits for Miss Roccia as well. If you have neither of those, you can go to the standard banner, because I actually realized I don't have this gauntlet. You can try and get the standard 5-star banner, the Abyss Surges. This has attack as its substat, or as its main stat, so you're going to have to get that crit rate elsewhere in the echoes, so keep that in mind. But this would be her third best gauntlet. But now let's jump into some 4-star gauntlets that you're looking for if you don't have any of these 5-star options. And for those, we have the Celestial Spiral and the Hollow Mirage. These are going to be your more free-to-play friendly options here. There's another 4-star gauntlet, but you get that from doing the Pioneer Pass and buying the Pioneer Pass. And as you can see here, when you hit level 30 in the Pioneer Pass and you've purchased the Pioneer Pass Insider channel down here, you will get what these are the Pioneer Podcast weapon chests. And from that, you get to select one of these 5 weapons. This one, which would be our gauntlet for Roccia, would be the Stonard. You can see here it gives crit rate. Not as much crit rate as the 2 5-star options I showed before, but it still does give crit rate. However, I would say if you're going to go with the 4-star options, go with one of the other 2. When they're all maxed out and all that, the math for them comes back that they do a little more damage here than the Stonard. So instead of going through and paying for this, unless you happen to have one already, then just get one of the other 4-star gauntlets until you get one of the better 5-star gauntlets. I'm now going to jump to Forte before Echoes, because explaining her Forte is going to help you understand why you need the stats I'm going to mention on the Echoes. So let's just jump into it here. Her Forte circuit. You're going to see here that we have basically Beyond Imagination, Basic Attack, Real Fantasy, and then Imagination down here. To explain it simply, to make it so we're not sitting here for 50 years reading all the text, these are her 2 states while doing Basic Attack, essentially. And then Imagination is what you're getting when you're filling up your Resonance gauge at the bottom of the screen. So as you can see here at the bottom under my Roccia, we have the Forte gauge, and you can see there are 3 sections. That's because she can hold up to 300 Imagination, 100 for each breakpoint. So when you just do basic attacks and you actually hit enemies, you're going to charge up Imagination. Or when you simply hold your attack and charge your heavy attack, you can see here I just gained a whole bunch of Imagination that way. Then when you're fully charged up, when you launch your skill, boom, we do a little tornado. Boom, 2, 3. It's kind of like a little pogo stick with her suitcase there. That's doing the Beyond Imagination attack. So that is that Beyond Imagination right there. You can see it consumes 100 Imagination for each time. You have 300 total. That's why you could do it 3 times when you have it fully filled. That essentially explains this. It does also say here you can get your Imagination from casting your Resonance skill. You gain 100 for casting the Res skill. And then also when you cast your Intro skill, you gain 100 Imagination that way as well. Her Resonance Liberation is the important part and why she needs crit rate on her. So when you use your Res Lib or your ultimate, you'll deal havoc damage to the target, considered as heavy attack damage. But for every 0.1% of Roccia's crit rate over 50%, the skill increases the attack of all resonators in the team by 1 point for 30 seconds, up to 200 points. So to get to that 200 points, you need to get 20% above 50, which is equal to 70. So that's why you want at least 70% crit rate on your Roccia, and why it's a big stat, and why I mentioned it on those weapons. Because you're going to also need to get some from your Echoes to hit that 70 point. So you're buffing the team with that extra attack. So your DPS who comes in after Roccia can deal the most damage. Her res skill, I demonstrated for you all, does that tornado, which sucks enemies in. And then you enter the Beyond Imagination state where you do your pogo sticks on her suitcase. This basically just explains her basic attacks and how you get to the Beyond Imagination and how you need 100 Imagination to get to the Beyond Imagination state. Pretty simple. Her inherent skills are when you use a resonance skill or heavy attack, you're going to increase her attack by 20% for 12 seconds. That's a nice one. And then this other one here is when you use her outro skill, it is going to make it so the utility that your other character has is replaced by this special magic box attack. So what do I mean your utility is replaced? Well, your grapple here is your utility. So if you're playing on mouse and keyboard, it looks like this. And if you're playing on controller, you see it above your skill there. Instead of using my grapple like that, it's going to use the magic box attack, which when you're actually in combat, you're going to see the symbols glowing pink here, and then you press it and it does this little tornado. Her intro skill just does some damage, and then her outro skill is why she's so useful alongside those havoc DPSs. The incoming resonator has their havoc damage amplified by 20% and basic attack damage amplified by 25% for 14 seconds, or until the resonator is switched out. So swapping into your Cameelya, your Havoc MC, or your Donjin, they're getting these bonuses to their damage, which is going to help them hit even harder than they do now. Her stat bonuses are for crit damage and for attack. Of course, she has them on both sides, as do all characters. And that is her Forte. With her Forte explained and simplified, if again you have any questions on it, feel free to ask me in the comments, but it is really that simple. But let's get into her Echoes here. We're going to talk about what Echo sets you want, what main stats you're going to want on your 4, your 3, and your 1 costs, and then as well what substats you're going to want on all of your Echoes. So let's start with what set you want. You're going to be going for either the Midnight Veil set, which will increase your havoc damage by 10%, and then when the outro skill is triggered, an additional 480% of havoc damage to surrounding enemies is done. This is considered outro skill damage, and then grant the incoming resonator 15% havoc damage bonus. You can see another bonus here when you swap out of her into your main DPS. Your other option is going to be Moonlit Clouds, which if you're just starting the game and maybe pulled Roccia and you haven't made it to the new 2.0 area, then you can go ahead and get this. It's going to be easier to farm because you can't farm the new Echo set that I showed you, the Midnight Veil, until you get to the new area. So you can go ahead and get Moonlit Clouds. Its bonuses are energy regen is increased by 10%, helps you get your ultimate a little easier. And then also, upon using the outro skill, increases the attack of the next resonator by 22.5 for 15 seconds. Your 4 cost is going to be the Nightmare Heron for the Midnight Veil. And then for the Moonlit Clouds, it's going to be the normal Heron. The reason it's the normal heron for the Moonlit Clouds is you deal some havoc damage, and then also you're going to restore Resonance Energy and increasing the next character's damage dealt. And then for the Midnight Veil, this one's even more important because the Nightmare Heron here, you can see here that besides transforming into it and dealing havoc damage, just having this equipped is going to grant you havoc damage bonus and resonance skill damage bonus. You're doing more damage even if you just have it equipped without using it. Now, your main stats on your echoes are going to be the same whether you're running Midnight Veil or the Moonlit Clouds. Doesn't matter. Same main stats for both. You're going to be aiming for either crit damage or crit rate. Sadly, I don't have any Nightmare Herons with crit damage or crit rate yet. They just hate me. But you're going to be aiming for crit damage or crit rate. If you need that crit rate to get to the 70%, go for the crit rate on it. If you can get the crit rate from, your weapon and substats on other echoes, then you can go for crit damage instead. For your 3 costs, you're going to go with either havoc damage bonus on both of them, both of your 3 costs, because you're running 2 3 costs, or havoc damage on one and then attack % on the other. You can play around with it, see if you get better substats on whichever one. If you have a lot better substats on 2 havocs, do that. If you have a lot better substats on 1 attack and 1 havoc, do that. Just keep it simple. Don't make your life too difficult with rerolling these echoes unless you really want to get absolute perfection. Absolute perfection would be the attack with the havoc damage if you can get the best substats on both. And then for your 1 costs, it's going to be just attack % on both of your 1 costs. You'll be running 2 1 costs. You want attack % on both of them as their main stat. And with main stats out of the way, let's focus on the substats now. If you don't know what I mean by substats, it's the stats down here that you roll on your echoes, like the crit rate, and then I'll want to upgrade again and again and again. Those are your substats. Your main focus is going to be energy regen and crit rate. Again, we're aiming for that 70% crit rate on her, so that's super important. But also energy regen. You're going to want her to ult every time she's on the field. So you're going to want some energy regen between 20 to 30%, I feel is normally like a safe range to get there. If you find you can get away with having a little less energy regen and you're still getting the ult every time she's out there, perfect. You can do that and try and get a different substat roll for, more crit damage or whatever. Once you have crit rate and energy regen down, then you can go and you can get crit damage, attack %, heavy attack damage %, or flat attack. Those are going to be your next substat rolls you're going to be aiming for on your echoes. As you can see, it's all attack based. She's a sub DPS, so she does do damage. So that is why we're focused on the attack related ones, and then heavy attack, as she does heavy attack damage rather frequently. And to finish it out, do you need more copies? Not really. If you are going to aim to get her more than once, I would go for S2, and then you can probably just cut it off and go ahead and try and aim for saving for the next character or weapon you want. Now, just to show you a quick rotation through here, it's going to be the same whether you're using Verina or the Shorekeeper as your first character up. You're going to be trying to get their ultimate with both of them, and then just kind of setting things in motion. Then you're going to swap into Roccia. You're going to be getting her imagination all the way up to that 300%. You're going to be using it. You're going to launch her ultimate, as you normally do. We'll then swap into cameelya. And then, your DPS is going to do their thing. Take out the bad guy. Done, dusted, nice, real quick. I sadly did not get a nice crit rate in Parents Heron. But that does it for Roccia. I hope this guide helped you out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Don't forget to check out my Twitch for live streams. I also live stream on both Twitch and YouTube sometimes. So make sure to come by, have some fun. Love to see you guys there live. That's going to do it for me. Make sure to share it with a friend if you feel that they would benefit from this. And yeah, hope y'all are staying happy and healthy, having the best of days. I'll catch y'all in the next one.
When the spotlight graces the stage once more, we shall return.